Starting. So the recording is going.
Let's begin.
Woo! 6:31, I'm calling this meeting to order. All of you were sent the minutes in advance of the meeting. So are there any additions or corrections to the minutes as submitted? Anybody?
It looks good to me.
Hearing none, they stand approved as read, as sent. And now I hand it to Paolo for our first agenda item, public participation.
Yes, of course, and thank you. I'm going to first turn it over to Jerome. Jerome, welcome back. And then Teresa. Teresa, hello. So I'm pressing this allow to talk button. We need to call that something else, allow to talk. I don't like that power. Okay. All right, Jerome, welcome. And as usual, we have 2 minutes for each person. So I'll just use this fancy iPhone timer and then put my hand up as we're getting close to the end, okay? At the last 10 seconds. So Jerome, please take it away.
Is my video on?
Your video is not on, but we can hear you. And I won't I'll start over your time since we're trying to work through the what do you call it? Technical difficulties.
Okay. Well, my name is Jerome Sabayan, and I'm a candidate for Beaverton City Council. And this month's special.
Excuse me.
Yeah.
Forgive me for this last minute interruption, but as he is a candidate, is this appropriate?
Yeah, so this is during the public comment piece, and it's totally okay. We just ask that Jerome not put any of the public websites or anything in the chat. But otherwise, since this is public comment, it's totally cool.
Yes, and I am reappearing because my comments last month were not recorded. So,
which was my fault, yes.
So my name is Jerome Sabayan, and I'm a candidate for Beaverton City Council in this month's special election. First of all, I want to thank you for your service to our community and our city. The Human Rights Advisory Commission is an important mechanism for accountable and transparent policing, as well as safeguarding the human rights of the Beaverton residents and citizens. I'm the son of Filipino immigrants and was raised in Salem and now live in the Beauce neighborhood. Like you, I am a community volunteer, having served or currently volunteer through Beaverton Severe Weather Shelter, Community Emergency Response Team, Social Services Funding Committee, the Human Rights Advisory Commission, Beaverton School District's Bond Accountability Committee, Home Plate for Homeless Youth Board of Directors, Metro's Get Moving 2020 Local Transportation Infrastructure Investment Team, Engineers Without Border, Community Engineering Corps, and Education First Scholarship Foundation, all serving traditionally underserved communities. Although I am a past HRAC member, I will not comment directly on your January police reforms recommendation in this venue. I do want to acknowledge and applaud the great effort you have invested in ensuring that everyone's voices are heard and that everyone's interests are thoughtfully considered. As one of a handful of students of color in my Salem high school, I completely understand the trepidation Beaverton students might feel when seeing a white police officer coming down the hallway. I can also tell you that the first 3 Beaverton police officers I met after settling here were people of color. I also desire transparent and accessible policing data that is meaningful and disaggregated while protecting privacy rights. I am a licensed professional engineer with bachelor's and master's degrees in civil engineering. As a former public works director, I understand how infrastructure is a direct reflection. Okay, well, thank you for your time. I'm sorry, I'm gonna type my email address in the chat. Feel free to reach out for me for the rest of my statement. And I gotta leave, I gotta join another committee meeting. So thank you for your time.
Thank you, Jerome.
Thank you for being here, Jerome, and sorry for always having to cut you off. All righty.
Thank you for coming tonight.
Teresa, hello and welcome.
Hello, good evening, everyone. Thank you for allowing me to speak. As Paolo said, my name is Teresa Payne, community member here. I would like to just thank each and every one of you on HRAC for your work, continuous work. And I just wanted to also make a quick comment here that I did not have the opportunity to watch your meeting from last month live, but I did see the video on YouTube and on the City of Beaverton website. And I didn't think I heard or saw the beginning of Jerome's introduction and speech. And so I was just commenting to see if that could be added to the website, if it would be possible to have that like snippet. Obviously, I'm here this evening, so I was able to hear the beginning of what would have been his entire 2-minute spiel. But I think that as a Beaverton community member, just to be able to have everything in completion, to be able to hear what he said at the beginning. I know you have already approved your meeting minutes for last month, but if there's any way to, thank you, Paolo, but if there's any way to make an update or allow people to refer to the meeting from this evening so that they have a complete picture of what was cut off from the previous meeting, I think that would be very helpful. Just trying to have equity and inclusion in everything to make sure no one's verbiage was cut off. So just want to give that little 2 cents, but otherwise this is not constructive criticism, just feedback. So yes, and I will not be able to stay the entire meeting, but once again, thank you each and every person here for all of your hard work. Don't want to give too many shout outs, but a lot of familiar faces on here. And hello, goodbye, good evening, and keep up the good work, everyone. Thank you.
Thank you, Teresa.
Thank you. Go ahead, Stephanie.
I was just thanking Teresa for being willing to come. I always appreciate people from the community sharing their thoughts with us.
And Teresa is also with the Diversity Advisory Board, I believe, right, Teresa? And a past Bold graduate. So I just wanted to throw that out there. If it's cool, I'll go ahead and turn over to the liaison updates. And then let's see. I'll just go by the name I see first, Councilor Hasan.
Hello, everybody. Happy Wednesday. Thanks for actually choosing to sit in front of your computer rather than being outside. I realize that that's a hard decision to make, although Mercy did nail it because she decided to have both. Just a couple quick updates for y'all. We are in final interviews for the city manager. As you all know, that's a crucial hire for our city, given the change in government. If you haven't seen the press release, we've identified 2 finalists. They're actually coming to Beaverton next week to get to know different members of our city. And then we're having final interviews next Friday to hopefully land on a finalist. So that's really huge because that will help continue to give us a little bit more, we've just been in transition. And so it'll be nice to have a person that is the person that is helping continue to move us forward and city council's agenda forward as well. In addition to May, it's also budget month. And so we will be city council having really intense meetings talking about budget for next year. One of the sort of challenges of being newer in office, or kind of our election cycle, is we got elected. The budget cycle sort of process began. We didn't really get to weigh in on what we wanted to see in the budget. And so we're going to get a budget that, might be sort of from the past. And so one of the things that we're talking about as council is how do we, how are we setting up next year's budget in a way that's a reflection of what some of our priorities and hopes are. So there will be a ton of budget meetings that you'll see that are coming up in the city that go into quite late into the nights. In terms of just some of the HRAC recommendations that y'all made last night, the council did discuss SROs, and where we landed was a joint process with the Beaverton School District to talk about an assessment and evaluation of the program. So Councilor Alison Tivnon and Councilor Mark Sansusi sort of graciously said that they would kind of be the points of contact with the Beaverton School District in collaboration into what this joint process is going to look like. And last but not least, I would be remiss if I didn't give a shout out to the Beaverton Night Market. That is a big event that's going to be happening, and I know they're looking for vendors, specifically folks from typically underrepresented communities. So if you know anyone that is a vendor or a business owner that wants to have some visibility, you can learn more on their social media. Questions, comments, concerns? Dori, I see your hand raised, and then I see Kathy.
Thank you. One of my questions about the school resource officer discussion, will that happen, I assume, waiting till after the school board election because there's so much activity and we have a potential new counselor as well?
Yeah, so literally last night, the discussion ended with Councilor Sansusi and Councilor Tivnon being sort of the Beaverton representatives for the Beaverton School District. I cannot imagine that any meeting or anything would happen until June. I think that one thing that I'm excited about for Councilor Tivnon is she's got a really strong marketing and data background. So I actually feel like she'll bring a really unique perspective coming from, you know, not having a lot of exposure to schools and police and trying to understand what's going on. So I'm excited about that team. So I would say definitely June-ish. Kathy.
Yeah. Will Councilor Tivnon, or has she had, access to the immense amounts of research about SROs? And has she been able to speak to the police about how many responses they have made that really are criminal sorts of responses, and what the police might do if we didn't have SROs, how they would take care of the kiddos?
I will let the chief, I don't know. I can't speak for Councilor Tivnon's conversations with the police, so I don't know, Chief or Lieutenant, if you have any insight or thoughts.
Hello, everyone, and good evening. It's good to be back and see all you guys. I have not, Ms. French, I have not had a direct conversation with Councilor Tivnon about the SROs. I've sent data to the interim city manager, Mr. Wilson, and I know that it's been posted and on a SharePoint site for all councilors and the mayor, and so they do have information. But to answer your question directly, I've not spoken to Councilor Tivnon, but I would absolutely be open to either her or Councilor Sansusi having a discussion with them if they feel it's prudent to do their work with the school district. So yes, thank you.
It looks like we also have a question from Laurel.
I do, Councilor Hasan, especially with the potential timeline on this being pushed out into the summer. I'm curious what the process will be for amplifying and centering student voices in the discussion of SROs on a city level.
That's a really good question. You know, this was really hard because in my heart, I wanted to be one of the people that got to be a part of the team that helped sort of talk about this and explore this, especially with my experience as a teacher. I think that probably it just made sense to have someone a little with a different outside perspective come in, which is why Councilor Tivnon and Councilor Sansusi, I think, are the right people for this work specifically. And I think the best I can say is I will communicate to them how important I think that they do ensure that they are centering student voices. And I just encourage any of you, if you want to let council know or those specific councilors know that would be helpful as well. Personally, I have some connections to some of the groups within Beaverton schools because I did teach here. So like the Beaverton Educators for Back Live. So I've got a couple connections that I know will help get them connected to the right people, but absolutely would love to hear, not necessarily me here, but encourage you to share anything that you think that we should be doing or that they should be doing specifically.
Great, thank you.
I will add one thing to that. We are the city representatives. And so the school board is really sort of the school board members are just as crucial into this decision-making process as we are. If you listen to last night's dialogue, I think there's a lot of like, does the school board want them? Does the school board not want them? There hasn't been, a clear decision from elected officials. And so trying to get us to who's saying what and who really feels what. And so while Councilor Tivnan and Councilor Sansusi will be sort of the point or the representatives from the city, the school board does also need to be equally responsible, if not more responsible, because they are sort of overseeing the program in their buildings.
And we can cut this short if there's not time. I'm curious what your sense is in who ultimately will own that decision-making power. Will that be the school board? Will that be the city council? Will that be neither of those bodies? Who actually gets to make that call?
You know, I call it nose goes because everyone just puts their finger on their nose because nobody wants to make the decision.
Yeah, that's been my observation. That's like my cynical version of that. Like, will someone actually make a decision?
Yeah, you know, I think if you look across the state, school districts have really initiated that decision. And I think that speaking as a counselor, I'd like the school district to initiate a process and then make a decision. I'd like to trust that they are making the right choice. What I said on record last night, and I'll say it again, I've seen the data and it's really concerning to me, and I don't want to contribute to, you know, the school to prison pipeline. And so I'd love to reimagine the program. I'd love to think about what that looks like. But if you're asking me today, I'm concerned that we are using that this program today is contributing to the school to prison pipeline. But at the end of the day, the school board really is the right people to make the decision. And I think that people on council feel like we are not experts in schools to be making that decision. I feel a little more equipped because of my experience, but that doesn't mean the rest of the council does.
Thanks so much. This is a good moment to put in a sidebar of like, please vote in school board elections. And if anyone has questions about school board elections, I'd be happy to talk to folks outside of meeting time.
There is an election right now. Ballots are due May 18th. Please vote.
Message.
Thank you, Councilor. Was that all that you needed to share?
That's all I have. I don't know. I hope I didn't take away too many people's thunder because I got to go first.
No, we're so glad that you shared. And Paolo, I know this is your section, so let me get out of the way.
Let's go, Amy Browning. Hello.
Hi. Okay, so everything with MYAB right now is basically focusing on gathering applications and also working on all of our other projects. But essentially, we're looking for high school applicants or current 8th graders. There's no GPA requirement, and we're encouraging students from all backgrounds to apply. So it's really important to us that we reach the demographics that we haven't really reached in the past. So if you know anyone, make sure to encourage them to apply. Applications do close May 21st. And I'm just going to speak mainly on the advocacy subcommittee since that's the one that I'm mostly working with right now. So basically, the city is kind of finalizing their plans for the youth services tab because we've kind of submitted our main plan to them, and we're hoping that that will go up soon. But recently we were just working on a series of social media posts to put on the City of Beaverton account. So you may have seen that if you follow it. And that's just to encourage knowledge about MYAB and what we're doing, and also to encourage everyone to apply. All the other subcommittees are basically working on the projects that I mentioned last time. So the Diversity and Equity Subcommittee is finishing up their video series. The Community Involvement Subcommittee is mainly working on their book library process, where they're distributing books to local neighborhood libraries for easy access. And then right now, the Youth Homelessness Subcommittee is kind of mainly prepping for next year because there was I can't really speak for it, but basically they're preparing more for next year for more of a large event. Are there any questions? Laurel, I see a hand, but I don't know if that was.
No, I'm sorry, that's me. I just forgot to lower it.
Okay, great.
Thank you so much, Amy. And
Amy, I have a question.
Could you, excuse me, is this all right?
Go ahead, Spencer.
Thank you. Amy, could you speak, maybe elaborate a little bit about the program you're encouraging people to apply for?
Yeah. So,
like oversight situation?
yeah, so basically, applications for the entire board are open, which means our board consists of 20 people right now, and people leave the board when they graduate. So right now there's about like 6 spots open, and we're mainly trying to get from high schools where we have underrepresented populations, and there will be members graduating from there. So although we try to make our application and selection process as fair as possible, we do have to keep that into consideration because we can't have a majority from specific schools. So yeah, and the main thing that's different from years past is we're really encouraging people that haven't really applied due to concerns about GPA or other academic concerns. We're really looking for a broad spectrum of people to apply because we really value everyone's opinion, and we know that quality work can come from anyone, regardless of background. I hope that answered your question.
Yep, thank you very much.
Thank you, Amy. And that answered my question as well. Spencer and I must be on the same wavelength.
Awesome.
Cool. And I'll just wrap up by saying, yeah, Councilor Hasan actually mentioned a bunch of the updates that I had and sent out to you all. In addition to that, I'll just remind again that this is the final week to apply for a Beaverton Welcoming Week grant. And so Welcoming Week this year is September 10th to the 19th. Yeah, September 10th to the 19th. And it's a week-long series of events that promote Beaverton as a welcoming city and encourage cross-cultural education and learning. And so grants for that application are due this Friday at 5 p.m. And you could receive a grant of up to $1,500. So that's all. I'll just leave it at. Were there any questions about that or any of the other updates that I sent from all of us? And I see Kathy. Hello and welcome back, Kathy.
Does the Human Rights Advisory Commission set up a table there?
What do you mean there? Because there's actually a full week of events. It's not
a full
event.
week.
Yeah.
Oh, so it's not like just outside a fair sort of thing.
There might be some outside fair sort of thing if somebody applies to do some sort of outside fair type thing and they get an application, possibly. But I would say that there have been events in the past where there have been some organizations tabling. I'm not so sure that I could say there's a city board or commission there. It's maybe. If you're looking for other opportunities to table an event this summer, I believe we are actually going to be going over one of those opportunities later. Joy will be talking about that.
Thanks.
Yeah, of course. I think I might have seen Tanya's hand kind of creep up and then go back down, but maybe I'm imagining that.
No, you saw it.
Okay, cool.
And I'll just wait. I wasn't here last month, and I apologize for that. I see a lot happened, and I'm excited to learn what we're doing for engagement.
Yeah, of course. We will definitely be discussing the proposed engagement project in a bit. If there are no other questions for myself or any of the other liaisons, I'm going to move on to the next piece, which is approving the new bylaws. So I sent you all a copy of the bylaws, and I'll give you a moment to go ahead and find that again. And I see 2 hands up, but just real quick, the main thing that was changed in the bylaws, 2 main things actually. One, the format changed because in response to the new charter. So really it's just format that changed with bylaws for all the boards and commissions across the city. But the other one specific to our commission that changed was to allow HRAC to vote for their chairs anytime throughout the year. Specifically, I think what you all were saying you would like better would be at the end of the year, so that new folks aren't pressured to make a decision over folks that they don't know and have not had the time to build with over the year. So that was the main change. But of course, if there's anything else in there, you're welcome to bring it up here as well. I saw 2 hands. Stephanie, and thought I saw one from Lieutenant Stellingwerf, but I think it went back down, so maybe not.
Well, in the liaison updates, the lieutenant was listed and we didn't call on him. And so I was wondering.
Did I skip you, Lieutenant Stellingwerf?
I believe
I
we.
am so sorry.
It's happened to me once or twice, right, Chief? It's all right. I'm forgettable. That's fine.
Oh no!
Listen,
absolutely not. Thank you for being here.
It's really not about. Okay, it's really not about me today. I don't have tons on the liaison thing. It's in what Paolo sent out. But I will mention, I didn't mention in that, I think some of you worked with Captain Mike Smith over the years. He's actually retiring in June, so we wish him well. He'll still be around in the Beaverton area, but he's going to go do some other stuff. So for those of you that might know Mike, reach out to him and let's wish him luck on his next adventure. But we're here today too because there's some questions about the Washington County Juvenile Justice Reform from the last meeting. But before that, I want to introduce Hannah Geist, who works in Community Service Division here with us, and you can probably see the theme. You've been meeting some of the folks great folks that we work with. Hannah's been with the department since 2017. She's our Victim Services Coordinator, and that encompasses a lot of responsibilities. Some of them are victim advocates. I know Katrina mentioned it last month, but Hannah's the one that manages the victim advocacy, our volunteer victim advocates that go out and do that. And Hannah herself was a victim advocate prior to being our volunteer service coordinator, so she's been around and familiar with some of the stuff here at the department. Some of the other responsibilities are our volunteer. When I talk about volunteer services coordinator, besides the advocates, we have citizen or community volunteers for things like events. Obviously, we haven't done that in a while, but also like mission type stuff, like you might see a speed trailer and things like that out. But we have volunteers that work on other projects as well. Like I said, but with COVID, we haven't done a lot of that, but she's responsible for that. And to include what we're going to talk about tonight, and what Hannah's going to let you know about, is the peer court. And if you're not familiar with the peer court, it's a diversion type program where if a youth gets caught with certain crimes, they're referred to the Beaverton Youth Court, and that's where there's a volunteer judge. It's a diversionary thing in the sense that it doesn't go to the juvenile department. Their peers, volunteers, and the peers are volunteer attorneys, volunteer jurors. However, if you participate in the youth peer court because of a violation, you're asked to come back as a juror. And the kids are the ones that decide what the reasonable resolution is for that. A lot of times it's essays or some community service, things like that. And she can tell you a whole bunch more about that. I'm sure I missed something because I'm going fast. But that's in a nutshell what our peer court did, obviously before COVID. Now, since that time, Washington County's been working on a juvenile justice reform initiative, and I'm going to let Hannah talk about that and let her know a little bit more about herself. So it's all you, Hannah.
Thank you, Lieutenant Stellingwerf. And hello, everyone. Thank you for having me. I am Hannah Geist. I am our volunteer program coordinator at the Beaverton Police Department. As Lieutenant Stellingwerf said, I started at Beaverton as a victim advocate, as one of the baby advocates that helped pilot the program back in 2013. And it was an amazing experience, but it also was how I started my career. And my background is in victim advocacy, as well as case management for trafficked youth and working with the homeless population. So thank you for having me. So I will go over a little bit of what this Washington County Juvenile Justice Reform project is. I will say at the beginning here that I am just a small piece of this project. So the things that I tell you are coming from a member of the team and not from someone that has created it. So I always want to give that caveat just so that you know that there may be things that are missing here and we can get you context if you need them. So the Washington County Juvenile Justice Reform Initiative is called the School Justice Pathways Partnership. This started back in 2019 with the Washington County Juvenile Division, who decided that they wanted to apply for this program through Georgetown University Center for Juvenile Justice Reform. And what they do at the Juvenile Justice Reform Center is that they help train counties, they help train juvenile entities to understand what it looks like to start restorative justice practices and really partner with schools. So that's how this project came about. Lynn Schroeder, who is the director over there, is wonderful, and she was the one that kickstarted this. So the goal that they're seeking to achieve within this is diverting low-level first-time offenders from the juvenile justice system by referring specific first-time offenses to a community-based organization. This will create, hopefully, their hopes are to create equal opportunity for all youth within Washington County. My youth peer court is the only youth peer court left in Washington County. So over the years, the peer courts have kind of fell off the grid. And so really when we say equal opportunity, only the kids in Beaverton are receiving the diversion program that we offer here in Beaverton. And so these low-level first-time offenders will be coming into this program with the same offenses that I was taking in peer court. A lot of those in the past pre-COVID years were MIPs that came in. We did low-level thefts. We did, let me pull out my little cheat sheet. We had failure to carry or display a driver's license. There were quite a few criminal mischiefs that came in. And so just a list that they are creating at Washington County to help decide what types of cases are these cases that we can take into a diversion program. And so with peer court, my role on this team was to help inform everyone on what our diversion program looked like, how it worked, what the holes were, and to kind of help both the school understand this, but also the juvenile department as well. And then historically, we have been known as a restorative program at Beaverton. However, I tried to change that language as I got into the role because while there are a few restorative practices that I have added, we really weren't a restorative program. And so I think that that's a huge difference that Washington County is trying to do here, is to help inform that on both the school level as well as the criminal justice level. So that is a quick, I apologize, it was really quick, trying to get a lot of information to you, but does anyone have questions?
Go ahead, Jared. Jared, Kathy, Stephanie is what I saw.
This sounds like a fantastic program. I'm curious, you mentioned that there were more peer courts in existence that no longer are. Do you have a sense of why that is?
Sure. From what I understand, a lot of that was due to funding. I know Tigard was the last peer court with me in Washington County, and they closed down their peer court in 2018, and that was due to funding. I am unsure because all of the other ones were closed before my time in this role, so I'm unsure as to why they were closed.
Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Oh,
go ahead, Kathy.
Okay, thank you. Actually, Jared just asked one of my questions, but the other one is, where is the court held? And I'm surprised that it's more expensive than the regular court, actually. So could you talk about the process a little bit, maybe?
Sure. Can I clarify your question really quick? More expensive in which way?
Surely it costs money to not divert juveniles, to send them in the regular system. So I'm surprised that the diversion cost more money than the other. And I'm wondering how that may, and maybe you cannot tell me that, but where is this court held? What's the process?
Sure, that's a great question. Thank you for clarifying. So that our courts, both, I'll speak for Tigard and Beaverton's because those are the two that I'm most familiar with. They were both held at the police department. And so the police department lost funding for their peer courts, which is why that one is no longer in existence. And the peer court that I run previous to COVID and is on hold right now is also run at the police department. The process for peer court takes place through generally our SROs who have been called to the school for their calls, and they will cite the child into peer court with me. And then from that point on, I do an intake process with families and youth, and the youth has a choice whether or not to go through peer court with me. And we're really transparent about the program, that the work that goes into it, as well as the court process. And then the youth and their parents have, or their guardian have the opportunity to choose at that time whether to go through the program.
Thank you.
Stephanie, you had a question, right?
Yeah, I did. Hannah, can you talk to us a little bit about the success rate of the peer court and what the advantages of it are?
Absolutely. Unfortunately, I don't have the statistics in front of me of what the exact rates are that come through. However, we don't take repeat offenders into peer court. So this is a first-time offender misdemeanor opportunity. And these youth are with me for about a period of 6 months. And so within that 6 months, they go through their court process, which a lot of youth who volunteer for me like to call it their mock trial. However, I explain to the youth coming through the program that it is a court process in front of your peers. And so the benefits really there that I like to explain to the youth coming through the program are that you have the benefit of being able to have a relationship with both peers, as well as integrating. At the end of our time before COVID, I was trying to integrate the school district into there. So if a cite came through because someone was cited in their classroom for, I'm trying to think of a charge, for a theft charge, I was talking with the school counselors, I was talking with the teachers and the principals to help build that restoration process in there with the schools. So we have several different processes that take place within the court system, depending on what that charge might be, and the jury decides that. The other benefit of this is that they are able to get their record expunged at the end of that 6 months. And so I do that expungement process for them. And once that takes place, then they are able to move on their way and outside of the program.
Thank you. Laurel, and it looks like Spencer has a question after that.
Thank you. I have a two-part question. Is there an aspect of like officer discretion in making a decision about if a student is recommended to peer court or not?
Sorry.
That's fine.
Great question. There is an aspect of discretion there. I work really closely with the SROs during my peer court season, which, excuse me, I call it season because it is only during school. Sorry, we don't take place during school breaks, so it runs whenever school is running. And I only see the sites that come through, so I'm unsure which cases go to SROs and that I don't see. However, there is such a great relationship there that they will always contact me and find out, does this case qualify for peer court?
And then connected to that question, are there are there data, like demographic data, on which students are recommended for peer court versus recommended for the standard process?
So if I'm understanding your question right, please correct me if I'm getting this wrong, but we don't have, so we give everyone the opportunity. I don't track demographics within peer court because every site that's taken, I have to inform the juvenile department on it, and they track those demographics. But everyone that is offered one opportunity, it's offered to everybody that qualifies for the program. And those qualifications are based on the case and not who you are.
Okay, thank you.
Sure.
Spencer?
Thank you. I've been taking notes and it's hard for me to do two things at once, so forgive me. I wrote down that the last peer court closed in Tigard due to lack of funds. I'm confused. Are there peer courts that are operating now? And is that a different program than the diversion program that you were talking about earlier?
So our peer courts that are operating, so right now our peer court is on hold due to COVID. The closest peer court that I know of that is still in existence is in Eugene. I've had the opportunity to go visit their peer court as well as collaborate with their coordinator. And that peer court is actually a community run program. So it's not through a police department or the juvenile justice system. And the diversion, I'm sorry, when I use interchangeably peer court and diversion, we are considered a diversion program. If I'm hearing you correctly, I would answer your question by saying that we are the diversion program that I was referring to, aside from now Washington County is creating this project.
Councilor?
So 2 questions. What is considered criminal mischief at the student level or at that level? And then if it's not available now, but students have been charged with something, they're just going through the typical system.
Great questions. So criminal mischief, and it's been a while, so forgive me, it's been a while since I've worked with a criminal mischief case. Criminal mischiefs that come through peer court have been very minor cases. And so that could look like some sort of vandalism at the school or something happening at the school. Very rarely do I get cases that come from patrol that are outside of what is in school. And then, I'm so sorry, Councilor Hasan, what was your second question?
Criminal mischief.
Did that answer your question? Yeah.
Yeah, I think so.
Okay.
Oh, what's happening right now? Sorry, for kids.
Oh, sure. That's a great question. So because school hasn't been in session, it hasn't been possible for us to do peer court with the model and social distancing and all of that. And because kids were not in school, SROs were not referring. As of this moment, I am not actually sure what's happening. So I apologize, I can't answer that question.
Are there any other questions? Oh, it looks like Mercy and then Kathy. And yeah. Mercy, go ahead.
Thank you. So my question is, when a student is identified as qualified for your program by the SRO, what length of time are they giving they and their parents and guardians to decide as to whether they want to go in your system or they want to go the regular way?
Yeah, that's a great question. Thank you. It is actually so that SROs, once they write the site, they are out of the process. So that process is now handed off to me. And I give the parents some time to think about it. We have so many diverse families that come through the peer court system that I want to be sure that I'm giving everyone the time that they need as well as the support that they need. And so I have fabulous adult mentors that work with me in the peer court program. And so I always have one that sits with me in the intake process or helps with the intake process. And they will give that youth and family extra time right after that meeting to kind of process and answer questions without me in the room, because I know that with me there and being the court administrator, that it can add some dynamic of angst there. And so I give them the opportunity to talk with a mentor, as well as talk with their parents. And then I give them up to 72 hours to decide. At that point, I'm communicating with my contact at Washington County Juvenile and letting them know, hey, this is where this youth and their family are at. I will keep you updated if I have to refer the case back to Washington County.
Yeah, thank you. 72 hours is good. I was just wondering.
Yeah, thank you for the question.
Let's go ahead and have Kathy finish this off.
Yeah, mine is just a follow-up question to Laurel's about the demographics. Where is that information posted?
I am unsure as to if Washington County has posted that information as of yet. That has been a part of the project that we are working on right now. And so I can find out that information and send it along to Lieutenant Stellingwerf for you to see if they've posted it. Yeah.
Okay, thank you.
Alrighty. Sorry again for skipping over. I will say though, shout out to Lieutenant Stellingwerf for always bringing guests. I think you're the only liaison that's been doing that, and I think that that's pretty cool. Yeah, I'm seeing lots of these. I haven't seen these since the 90s. Let's bring it back. Thank you. Cool. Oh, nice. I'm saving that for the recording. Cool. I'm going to move on to the next piece. And thank you so much, Hannah, for being here with us. I'm going to move on to the next piece. So I already gave my pitch earlier for the bylaw updates for HRAC. And so does anybody have any questions or comments about the bylaws that I sent your way? And if not, is there anybody who would like to motion to adopt them?
If I could, I'll just add a quick comment on how important I think that this amendment is. It's such an unfair burden to place on the incoming group that, this is their first month and their first exposure to an idea that may have been processed and looked at for a year previously, and then to burden them with the expectation that they be up to speed on that and have some sort of understanding of the historical process that has brought us to the place that we are. And so I feel very adamant that this bylaw be included so that the work that we're doing this year, if we have big decisions to make on it, that we put closure around that before the next group comes in. And there will certainly be times when we continue the work. It isn't in any way to truncate that process, that the work that we're doing will continue on, and we want new members to comment on that and modify it as necessary as we move along. But to burden people with unfinished business from the year before is really the objective of this. And I make a motion to approve it.
I would like to second that motion.
Before we get there, I did see that Brendan did raise his hand midway. So Brendan, do you have anything you want to share? Oh, can
you unmute yourself, Brendan?
Can you hear me now? Yeah, I just wanted to echo what Stephanie said. As a person that's new to the commission this year, you guys had a lot on your plate from the previous year, and then also having to vote on top of that, and then me being, lost in the weeds a little bit. I would definitely agree that what y'all are saying makes sense. I'm glad y'all are making this change.
Thank you, Brendan.
I don't think I
Paolo,
saw
you
any
there.
hands. But we could go back to, I think Stephanie motioned, and was it Joy who seconded?
Mhm.
Okay. I'm not supposed to be doing this part, so.
Shall we
It's
take a
okay.
vote on that?
Is there any further discussion? All right, the motion on the floor is to adopt the bylaw change as submitted. All those in favor, raise your hand. All those opposed, raise your hand. Motion carries unanimously.
Cool. Sorry, Spencer, only one of your hands was counted, but thank you all so much. I'm going to turn it over to Stephanie.
Thank you, Paolo. Let me first check in with Spencer. Spencer, I want to be sensitive and make sure that you've had enough time to catch up, because I know we kind of speed through these things, and our expectation is that you're typing madly in the background. And I just wanted to make sure that you had an opportunity to get things done that you needed to do, as well as if you had any questions that we needed to fill in for the minutes of the meeting.
Thank you. Joy very nicely waved her hand at me, so I knew who seconded your motion. That was all I was missing. So thank you, Stephanie.
Perfect. Thank you.
You can't leave him behind.
I have a lot of empathy for our recorder. That's a really hard job, and bringing accuracy to that. Well, we are quickly moving through that, and at the same time trying to be a participant is a monumental task. What I wanted to use this space for, and what we talked about as a team, was really to make some space for processing and discussing the George Floyd verdict and the impact that that's had on us personally, as well as our community, and to make some space for allowing the profound nature of this time to really surface. And so I'd like to open the floor to anyone who has a comment or would like to talk about the impact of that. Okay.
Well, I actually want to just jump in for a second.
Please, Tanya.
Okay. So I work at Bridge Meadows, and it's an intentional intergenerational community working with elders and supporting foster families where the kids are adopted. And what's come about since the guilty plea or the guilty verdict is having our elders, who are mostly white, who are all white, learn what it means to take one of our foster kids out into the community. And almost all of our foster kids or newly adopted kids are children of color or Black. And for me, just taking that verdict down to the ground and really having to look at my role as a protector of children, and how much I don't see the microaggressions and the aggressions that a Black mother or has when she walks onto a playground or into one of our parks. And there's just so much. The whole past year has just taught me how much we have to learn, and how much our kids have to learn that our kids are going through, and how much hatred there is for the police. I just am feeling it and seeing it more. And I feel torn, because I love our police department. I think we've got a great lead, team, and they've done really well, I think. And yet now I question whether have I just not heard or seen enough because of all the racism. So yeah.
Thank you, Tanya. You know, I as relieved as I felt to see the verdict, you know, the hollowness of that, or, you know, if we want to call it a step in moving towards justice, I guess it didn't change that a family has lost someone. And I think so much of the time we extrapolate to the broader communities and we forget the individuals, and we forget the individual families that are suffering and the individual families that have been impacted, and that, you know, we even say the term, you know, we don't want another George Floyd to happen. And yet George Floyd wasn't an event, he was a person. And we want to make sure that we're really focused on the humanity of this, and that we're bringing our discussions, you know, especially as we're working as a commission, that we're remembering that, you know, as we're talking about broad groups, that we remember that each one of those are humans and individuals that have lives and contributions and dynamic voices in the community that we want to hear, and their individual souls matter to all of us. And so I, you know, when we look at the broader implication, I'm, you know, there's a relief, but within that perhaps the relief makes the space for the real pain to surface. Laurel, please. Mercy. Right after that.
I was gonna say, Mercy, if you want to go ahead, I'm happy to go after you.
Oh, I just want to recommend you for making a space for this time, because this is the first time we came on since that verdict. And it's nice to know that somebody might want to say something about it. And not knowing that fact, I just want to say thank you. I always say that the Black people of this country have suffered a lot. I am Black, but I just came here 21 years ago. And I'm already tired with everything that I'm seeing. I put myself in the space of all those brave men and women who have been fighting for this time that we saw in the verdict. Whether after the verdict, the tension of killing Black people rose or not, but there was a verdict, and it needed to happen a long time ago. But I don't know how far it's gonna go, because I haven't checked the TV this week, but since that verdict, so many have been killed, murdered innocently. And you wonder, is it anger that somebody was, convicted of their crime? Is this where we're going? It just, I just don't know. So I'm just glad that you made a room for this space. And I know you said everything. There's nothing I can say, but I don't have an English word for how I feel right now. So thank you for making a space.
Thank you for sharing, Mercy. Laurel?
Yeah, I've been mulling through in my head. I have a comment and it's gonna come across as a criticism, and I've been trying to reframe it, but I just hope that we're in a space where we can sit with that discomfort a little bit. So I'm gonna lead with that. I notice that we're describing this as the George Floyd verdict, and it's not a George Floyd verdict. He wasn't on trial. He didn't get an opportunity to be on trial. And I admire that, and I've struggled with this myself, that I want to center and frame all of this around him and his life and his significance as a person. But it always stands out to me how many people in my life I'm hearing talk about the George Floyd trial. There was no trial for George Floyd. He didn't get that.
Thank you, Laura. That's a profound point. George Floyd was not on trial. This was not a verdict about George Floyd. This was a verdict about Derek Chauvin, and we need to keep that in perspective. Thank you. Joy, please.
Thank you, Laurel. It leads to the question I've been mulling over in my head. And I don't have a good answer. I don't even know how to start. But the question to me is, how did it turn into the Wild West where one person could be judge, jury, and executioner? I don't want the police to shoot anyone. I don't want them to shoot guilty people. I mean, that's what trials are supposed to be for. And I believe in the rule of law, and I don't know how we got here.
Kathy.
You're muted, hon.
Oh, okay. So thank you, Joy. It is heartbreaking. And the verdict did not mend my heart because it was just one drop in a bucket. And it's so recently I read something, what a question that we should ask. What are the police allowed to do in our community? And I suspect they are allowed to do much more than you and I are allowed to do. Yeah, I have more
Cameron.
to say, but I will.
I see Cameron exploding.
Cameron, we got to hear from you.
Dude, you're muted.
Okay, so we've always been at this point with the police. This is their literal societal function. This is actually what they were created to do, was to exercise state violence against people who were in some degree undesirable to the state or otherwise challenge state power. That's literally what they've always been for. And then for what they can do, they are allowed to do basically anything. I tell my criminal clients, like my clients accused of criminal acts all the time, they're like, can the police do this? They're not supposed to, but they have guns, so yes, they can do that. That's literally their function in society, is to exercise state-sanctioned violence. So they can do that. And as for what they are legally allowed to do, yes, there are all sorts of things that the police can do that you cannot do. There are so many carve-outs in the law for what the police are allowed to do, not just the use of force to enforce laws. The one I always go back to is they can lie to you all the time. They can lie to you entirely. You are not allowed to lie to them at all. You are not allowed to even inadvertently mislead them. You have an affirmative duty to correct known misapprehensions of the police. they can outright lie to you. So yes, wholly different categories of people specifically set out under the law.
Well, it's always good to have an attorney on the commission. Councilor Hasan was,
It looked like Jared had something.
Jared.
Jared, please.
Yeah, it's so heartbreaking, and I'm so I echo what all of you were saying about the verdict. It was a verdict that needed to happen. And right up until that moment when the verdict was announced, I found myself wondering if the verdict would land that way. And that is so sad that, that I, and I'm sure many of you, have so little confidence in the system that, that was going to be the verdict that was reached. And were it not for that video and for it being filmed, I'm not sure if it was. So it just shows that there's so much more work that needs to be done. But it was a a moment that needed to happen, but a moment where I found myself reflecting right up until that moment, is this going to happen? And that's just the sad reality.
Thank you, Jared. Was there anyone else who wanted to share their thoughts? Brendan.
So I've gone back and forth about deciding to talk about this because we could spend hours going into the details about this stuff. But I just wanted to say this. First of all, thank you all for wanting to have a dialogue. Based on how old I am, it's become more important that people that are not Black or of a certain color have these conversations with the people that they touch, because us having the conversations wasn't really getting anywhere. So I appreciate all of you for bringing this to the forefront and being active and having an opinion and a say in this matter. To circle back to what I believe, Joy, you brought up as to why, this is my take, it's not been vetted, but it essentially, policing, I think, was a part of it, or a good portion of it was born out of slavery. People don't like to talk about slavery, but so the function of some of the policing back then was to disenfranchise freed slaves as well as enforce segregation. And so ever since the end of slavery, we were always considered less than human. Like if you've heard of the 3/5 compromise, that resonates as far as that's concerned. And then we couldn't vote until the 60s. So that's quite a bit of a time lapse where we were oppressed and put down, and people still don't acknowledge that was the case, say, get over it, that type of thing. But I'm not gonna get on my pedestal now. I just wanted to give some insight into what you asked, Joy, as well as thank the commission for bringing this up. Thank you.
Thank you so much for sharing, and thank you to all of you for being willing to share your thoughts. It's an inadequate and small opening that we wanted to make. It's, with all of us on Zoom all the time, so much of the interaction that we have is so stilted and condensed. And I think these personal conversations that allow us to express the impact, even if in a small way, can be very beneficial. Councilor Hasan.
I always want to be conscious of taking up space in your meetings because they're so important that they are your meetings and not my meetings. But I would be remiss if I didn't say that I think you're all doing the work, which is so important, right? We are talking about why, we're talking about this. You have initiated a huge body of work that while it is moving slowly, it is starting to move. And to Tanya's point around, did this always happen? I like to say, people aren't just inherently racist, right? Like there is unconscious bias, there's media, there are things that make us view people in different ways. And so I truly believe that like our police and our teachers and our doctors, right? All the people that provide services to us live in a system that did not allow certain types of people that look in certain types of ways or make a certain amount of money have access. And so we know that that access is missing for those communities specifically. And so we know that the systems were set up to specifically cater to very specific groups of people. And the work that we have to do, or that I have committed to do as a counselor, is to like burn it down in a way that is, you know, possible, and that gets us moving in a better direction. And so I mourn with all of you and I hear all of you, but you are trailblazing the type of change that we want to see and confronting the conversations that we want to have. And when Brandon shared the importance of people maybe that don't look like us continuing to push these conversations forward, like I commend you. Like Joy comes to City Council every Tuesday. Thank you, Joy, like for giving public comment. Some of you email, whatever you've been doing, like all of it really does matter. And personally, and I know others on council, we do deeply care and appreciate about this work, and that you are helping move this work forward. And so please don't feel like we don't hear you, even though it doesn't maybe always feel like it, and just keep coming to us and know that I care so deeply about what all of you are talking about. It's why I ran, it's why I'm here, and it's why I hope to continue to serve in this capacity. Thank you.
Thank you for sharing. And thank you all again for addressing both the systemic aspect and the personal, and where those two meet, because the systemic always becomes personal, doesn't it? If we have concluded this part, and I don't want to rush anybody through this process, I do first I want to say, if you haven't already, Dori has put some remarkable resources in the chat, and I encourage you to reference those. I certainly will be doing so. And then I am going to turn it over to Dori to talk about the community art project that we have been in consideration of, and what that may look like moving forward. Dori?
Absolutely. Just taking a minute to settle. So when we talk about art, art is a way of doing so many different things and of engaging so many different constituencies. So I want to make sure that we're also going to have some brainstorming time on the agenda, because I know that last time, Mercy, you raised the concern of, are we diving in too quickly into this one project? So I want to make sure that if there are other ideas around community engagement, and so let me start with where this project came from. Based on all the work that was done last year, one of the questions that really seeded and planted for me was this need, a gap that we are seeing between many city entities and their connection, authentic connection to community, whether that be communities of color or just the general Beaverton community. So it immediately made me think of art as a way to make that connection, and also a way to collect some qualitative data and to really understand what areas are people willing to emerge into in this different areas of Beaverton, the different physical geographic areas. So it would be a way to collaborate with the police force and to perhaps have some data to be able to look at patterns and see the ahas. So the proposal would be this: there would be a movable art project with questions that are determined by the police force and by this commission or subcommittee of this commission. And then the movable art project would be able to be in specific spaces over the summer. So in between our time last month and this month, I shared with Chief what this might look like, and she shared it with Lieutenant Stellingwerf. And they said it is doable on their side to have people join us in that effort. I wanted to open the floor though and see what other ideas are coming up. And I'm gonna say, this isn't completely, if you're a logistics person and you like a lot of detail, we're not there yet. It would take people to actually plan that. So I don't want us to dive into the weeds of, how are we gonna take care of pens when people are using them, right? And are people gonna wear masks? Are they going to be socially distanced? Those are all things we have to think about in the context of what the project would be. So everyone has gotten the document, hopefully. You're gonna see some heads nodding that you've seen it. And if you haven't seen it, I think we could possibly put a link back in the chat to the document. But I think, Paolo, you sent it out with all the other resources that we received this week. So it's generally, I think, opening the floor for discussion. Is that okay, Stephanie? To see what other ideas people had about community engagement this summer.
Please, yes, Dori. I think that's a great suggestion, and that's what I had understood that we were going to do. If there were additional projects people were considering, I feel like this is a really well thought out one that Dori has implemented, that would have suggested and brought to the commission for consideration for implementation. But if other people have ideas that they would like to share or to consider, we certainly want to make space for that. Mercy, please.
I really don't have an idea, but I'm coming back to say thank you for allowing us to go home, and then you sent us the document for us to view. After I went over the document, I understood exactly what you meant by the program. And even as I was thinking about it, I was like, oh yeah, this can be really great. Because even when we go for a walk in the Greenway Park, there are so many people that maybe we can create a box. I just started coming with an idea on what we can do with these, this artwork and how many different people can access it. So giving us that time to go home, and then you sent us that document for us to review. For me, I think that was a great thing. So thank you for allowing us to do that, and not just making a decision without understanding the actual meaning of your beautiful proposal.
Thanks, Mercy. Also, are there other ideas? Because we could do other things within the project as well. So, the thought would be, we do want to engage with the police department because this is a way for the police department to develop a skill set. It's also great for HRAC from the standpoint that HRAC would also start to connect with community members directly that we may not normally connect with.
Kathy?
And Kathy? Oh, sorry.
I was wondering if the community might include people other than HRAC. So I was thinking about Amy, high school kids coming in, or homeless people, or particular vulnerable people who really do not like to interact with the police, and the police may not be interacting with them as equals also. I was wondering about that.
So my thought on constituencies and the folks that you're going to engage with, in my personal practice, I always try to make sure that there is no harm, right? So not having people feel harmed is a really important piece of this. So that would be a reason to do multiple locations. And, you know, I think one request we may make of officers, which they may or may not comply with, if you're going to join us in the effort when we're collecting information, maybe you don't wear a uniform and you wear street clothes like the rest of us. Now, they may or may not agree to that. And the chief may have particular policies about if they're on duty, they cannot be without their gear. And that could be a learning experience for everybody, right? So that would kind of be my thought on that one. Other thoughts on that?
Dori, but when the art project is there, the police wouldn't necessarily be present when people are filling out the comments or the cards, or that would be more of an open period, or are you envisioning the police being there through that process?
I think it could go either way, right? I think issuing the invitation to the police, as I said, offers them the opportunity to connect with communities. You know, my ask of them would likely be, don't wear a uniform, right? Absolutely say you're a police officer, but don't wear a uniform, because that's a different relational stance than being fully geared. And as I said, the chief might say, no way, am I going to send my officers out there unprotected? And then I would probably respond with, I walk unprotected daily, so I'm sure that they can handle it as well if they so choose.
Cameron.
Amy, I think Amy was next, Spencer and Lisa, and then Cameron.
Cameron.
Yeah, so I just kind of wanted to reference, like earlier when we were talking about youth and other populations, I think that this would be a great idea to put in highly frequented areas that you know, teenagers go to a lot of the time, because I feel like there needs to be certain conversations, and I know a lot of people that would totally be willing to, you know, engage in an installation like this. So possible ideas for that could be the food carts by City Hall. I think that would be a great space. They have like a little green area there. That might be cool. Or just, you know, parks in general. In terms of the police officers in uniform, I am definitely on the side that they either shouldn't be there at all, and community members should be notified if they are going to be there, so that we create a safe space. Or if they are there, I would definitely say no uniforms would probably be best. But that's just my own personal opinion.
Thanks, Amy. Great thought about the food carts in the parks. I think the other piece, and I don't want to get too into the weeds because I know it's 7:54, but the other piece, Amy, where you could help us is social media. You know, I think that's the best way to do it, kind of like a pop-up, right? So you're going to pop up over a weekend at this park at these hours as another way to try and capture different communities. So love to hear from you about that. I think it was Lisa. Lisa, I think you were the next person.
Okay. I just was thinking, and I did mention this in the chat, that this would be a great Welcome Week grant for us, so that we could maybe get some funding to put something really beautiful together and maybe pay local BIPOC or Black artists to help us and support their work as well. And then also thinking about like publicity, like getting this in the press locally would be something I'd really support. And I'm happy to write a grant because it's due tomorrow, I think. And Paolo was going to look into whether we could do that on behalf of a city board or not. It's due today.
I'm going to wonder, Paolo, out loud, budget for city commissions. Might we be able to tap into that?
Good question. I haven't been buying you food for this last year plus.
Right? You owe us food.
So much
Yeah.
money.
Let's make it.
Can I follow up on that? I would assume yes, but we also have a pretty strict eye on our budget, and I've already kind of like, Paolo, how much money are you spending on food every month? So I already have like a reputation. So let me check.
But if we're not spending money on food, is the budget aggregate, or is it identified and marked for particular items?
Zero marked.
Yeah, usually what I've seen other boards and commissions do is they use their budget on things like name tags, shirts, if they want to make signs for things, they want to visit something or go like on, I don't know, things along those lines. I hope y'all don't mind. I opted for food.
Yeah.
I like food.
I'll take food over a name tag, Paolo.
I got you a name tag too, though. Sorry.
I want to make sure we get Spencer in too. I know Spencer had a comment, and then Cameron.
Well, Dori, you've raised the prospect of doing art. Art is exceptionally effective at bringing communities together. Guerrilla theater is what comes to mind for me. Does anyone not know what guerrilla theater is? Guerrilla theater is a core group of people who show up in a venue, say the food carts, or say a plaza, or a park, and do a 10-minute play. And they engage the people who are there. And in what I'm thinking is that there would be police personnel in the cast. And the whole thing would be for humanizing. It humanizes. And it gets people have to interact. That's what guerrilla theater is. So
I love that idea.
I was thinking about that.
Thanks, Spencer.
That's an exciting thought. Cameron, I believe your hand is up.
Yeah, about the uniform thing, they're not going to agree to that, to be out of uniform. They're actually required to be in uniform at all times, including a gun very visibly on their belt. And usually they are also required to be wearing their vest. So, yeah, while they are performing their functions as police officers, unless they're there, undercover, they're gonna very clearly be copying.
I've always thought, let's ask, right? Because maybe they're off duty. It could be many, many ways. So you don't get if you don't ask. I'd rather hear the no.
So just to respond to that, I think that is true. They can't be not have a uniform. But I will say that I have requested for police officers and the chief to be in some meetings not in full uniform, but they also have like another uniform, which is just like a button-up polo, and it does still say Beaverton Police and whatnot, but it is a far nod, I think, from the usual full vest and like tack belt and everything. So there's things we could do there. It's not full uniform. They're still in uniform, but it's a different angle, I guess.
Okay. Well, thank you. I think what we need to do as a commission is, if we are in agreement to the premise of this idea, then we need to get some concrete steps around what needs to happen next. And so I know, our time is limited today, but I think as far as I'm concerned, I feel like if there's consensus, Joy, do we need to have a vote? I mean, I know it was tabled, and do we need to have a vote on it? But if we're going to proceed, I feel a sense of urgency that we need to begin to move forward and get some concrete steps in place.
Technically, there is a motion on the floor, on the table.
Is there a motion on the floor?
It was tabled from last year, from last
Will
month.
the recorder please read the motion as it sits on the table?
Oh God, I have no idea.
Can you recall sorta?
Yeah, I was gonna say, just paraphrase it for us.
No, I just have to go get it. I'll get it out of.
Can I get a few thumbs ups about, is that kind of where we're at? Are we ready to kind of move forward and get some concrete steps with this? Because I feel like we've got a lot of information and we keep talking about it, but I want to see action and I'd actually like to see this happen this summer. I think it's such a powerful idea. So thumbs up from me, obviously, because I love it. Anybody else feel that way? Lisa? Yeah. Okay, Kathy.
It depends on the motion you make. So I can make the motion. Okay.
The motion is pretty simple. I summarized what Dori was proposing, and the motion was to accept this as a project for the summer. Dori made the motion, Lisa seconded. Mercy had some comments to make, and the motion was tabled until this month.
All right. There's a motion on the floor. Are we ready? Is there any more discussion? All right, all in favor, raise your hand. All opposed, same sign. Motion carries unanimously. I would like to quickly make a subsequent motion to have Dori run this.
Are you open to that, Dori?
She's been doing it.
I was going to say amen, because please.
She has the passion. She's like, just go.
Second motion. Second.
That was Lisa, second. Spencer.
My amen doesn't count.
Okay. You count a lot, Steph. So
I'm sorry.
There's a motion on the floor to have Dori run with this.
Who made the motion?
I made it and Lisa seconded.
Thank you.
Is there any discussion?
Lisa had a comment.
I just to kind of make this a little more concrete, like maybe to Dori to lead this as a subcommittee of the HRAC.
Does it need to be a subcommittee when we're all in on it? It could just be something we're doing.
Can we?
I think at least for the logistics, I'll need a few people because, you know, it is never good to work solo.
Well, you would have the authority as being the one in charge of it to do that.
Yep, but we know that diversity of all kinds helps us do better work when it's complex projects. So I think last time, actually, I'm going back to my notes. I think it was Britt. I have terrible notes. I think it was Britt. Lisa, you may have been the other person who volunteered. And I'm missing, I know, two more, and Tanya and Sabdi. So if that's possible to say, Dori will coordinate the project because I don't lead.
Yes, absolutely. Well, the buck needs to stop. My philosophy is that when you have the authority to do something, you also have when you're in charge, you also have the requisite authority, not just the responsibility. So I'm not a micromanager. I don't see Spencer or Stephanie or Paolo as micromanagers. So.
Well, I'm delighted that Dori is going to coordinate the project. And so what that looks like is that, Dori, are you going to reach out to them and then have a meeting, and then we can get a report as to kind of what our next steps really need to look like.
Right. Between now and our next meeting, we will definitely meet.
I'm so excited. I'm absolutely elated.
I will just share that it has been coming up to me that our city attorney's office has become more stringent and strict on public meeting notices. And so I think that, I'm going to look at it again, but, there's still less than quorum and whatnot in those meetings. But basically, moving forward, if we could have those meetings be public noticed, and that way it's open to the public as well. And I am happy to dig more into that later with you all, but I just wanted to make that note. And so please let me know if you are planning to actually have an official meeting.
So the first thing I would do, Paolo, is send out a doodle anyway to see what times people are available.
Okay.
So let me do that first, and then we'll just kind of establish a timeline of, 3 or 4 meetings.
Cool. And if it's okay with you, hopefully it's okay that I could crash that party so I could have the public notice Zoom and everything already in there. So
Is notice defined? Is it 1 week, 2 weeks, 5 days?
Good question.
1 week.
There's an ideal answer, and then there's actually like what happens. But 1 week notice is what we try to strive for at the city.
Okay.
I'm pretty sure I'm giving our city attorney a headache if they look at these videos. But yes, public notice, meaning the agenda and everything on the ATRAC website, which I would take care of so long as I know when those are happening.
We're so lucky to have you, Paolo.
Yeah, I was going to say thanks for keeping us on the straight and narrow, Paolo, and making sure we're following the guidelines. That's excellent.
Definitely. Did I miss a vote?
No. Who wants Dori in charge? In favor, say aye.
Program.
Opposed, same sign. Dori's in charge. Unanimously.
Goading you, Dori.
Just goading me. The
You were doing it anyway.
Language of being in charge really bothers me, so that's cool. But I'm just going to let you know, the team will be meeting and working together. Thank you all who have volunteered to be on the team and are willing to work together. Appreciate you.
Okay, I could say Dori is hurting the cats.
She's not. She's organizing, and we will honor that.
Lisa, what did you have that you wanted to?
Just because the grant that is due in 2 days, it's $1,500, which really would be helpful, in my opinion, to get this off the ground and also like support local artists potentially. Like if we can get money elsewhere, like that's great too. So I would just like kind of push that we have a discussion quickly. And the grant doesn't look super challenging. I just took a brief look at it. It would probably take like a half an hour. So just something to keep in mind as we move forward.
Yeah, I think, Paolo, if you can check, do you think you can check and get back to us in the next couple of days?
Well, it's due in 2 days.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Like tomorrow.
Due in 2 days with some flexibility.
Right.
But no, it's due in 2 days.
So I would like
think
to.
Bobby had something to say too. And she had her hand up just a second ago. I'm sorry, Joy.
It's all good.
Can you unmute yourself, Sabi?
You think I would have had it figured out by now. And that was my question was, can we apply as a committee?
I think that's a great idea.
I'm hoping we can. And Lisa's.
I'm also, Dori, I'm happy to do a quick, like, I can fill it out based on your proposal and then send it to you and you could eyeball it and submit it. Does that sound helpful?
That sounds great.
Okay.
The next couple of days are pretty busy, so I'd really appreciate that assistance.
So I'll get that to you by the morning Friday.
Okay. Thank you.
Joy, and I think I cut you off just a second.
That's okay. I was going to suggest that. So
perfect.
Great minds.
I'm positively delighted on where we're moving with that. I'm a person that loves to see progress and loves to see concrete action. So thank you to all, and our great summarizer, Lisa.
Can I amplify Paolo's comments though over here in the chat?
I'm sorry,
In
what
case
was that,
people
Laura?
are, I was gonna say, I think we should take a second to look at what Paolo's saying in the chat about
Welcome Week grant.
The arts program has grants that are year round. So this art project wouldn't be inherently limited to the 1 week in September that is Welcoming Week.
Okay.
So that's a good wrinkle to consider. Thank you, Paolo, for phrasing it that way.
Exactly.
I'm also pretty sure that the grant, I just eyeballed the like requirements, but I don't think that it has to just be welcoming.
So there's a few different grants. So there's a year-round welcoming grant, and then there's the welcoming grant that's specific to that week. The thing about the year-round welcoming grants, and this is a little bit newer for us, is they are also generally like one-time projects, also kind of like Beaverton Welcoming Week. And so I wasn't sure if this is what the timeline of the art project was, and I wasn't sure if it would fit, but in terms of the purpose, scope, and like the context of what you're doing, sure, it totally fits, but I wasn't sure if the timeline did. So when you're looking at the grant page, Lisa, that's probably what you saw. There's two separate grants, one specifically for that week, and then the other one, which is also year-round. But then I also know that there was some flexibility with some of the art grants as well. And I think also you could get more. But yeah, I am looking into the grant question, and I am also looking into, hey, can I use these funds that I usually use on food? And I think the one thing that would be helpful there is if there was a budget or something that I could work off of to know what those costs would go towards.
Yeah, I wrote like a quick one when I was just looking at this, and it's just
cool.
Very
You're
simple.
amazing.
Supply.
You're so efficient.
I try. Residency makes you crazy, I just gotta say. So supplies for art installation and maintenance was gonna be, $500, and then fees to local artists, which would be $250 per artist for 3 artists for a total of $750, and then refreshments for unveiling celebration, or refreshments and supplies for unveiling celebration, $250. I just made it up to make $1,500.
Time.
Let's keep her.
That's what we love. That's how stuff gets done. Thank you, Lisa.
Yeah.
All right, I am going to move us forward because I know the art team is going to be moving forward, and I feel a lot of confidence about that. I do want to turn it over to Joy so she can give us an update on council and the BPD recommendations.
Thank you, Steph. So I have been haunting the city council meetings and having something to say every week. I wanted to thank Kathy French, who is pretty regular, and Lisa when she's not working. She came and spoke quite eloquently about SROs. So I appreciate that. I would love to see more people come and speak, especially Cameron, man. I'd love to get some of that fire, right? Or Brandon, any of you who spoke tonight and shared stuff is completely perfectly appropriate to speak to city council. They can't see you, they can't talk back to you. So you can say anything you want. And I encourage you highly, please don't make me hunt you down. I think they may be getting tired of hearing me. But, I'm not going anywhere. They haven't taken up any of our recommendations yet. They're not even in compliance with state law yet, but.
It also took like a surprisingly short amount of time. So just as far as like time investment, it was like a minute to log in, and then you like wait for your turn, which took about 5 minutes. And then your turn is like 2 minutes to speak, and then you can sign off. So it was like 10 minutes of my evening and done. So if you're worried about the time commitment, I just wanted to share that.
Yes, so it's awesome. So I would really like for folks to volunteer to speak. The dates left this month are the 11th, 18th, and 25th. Seriously, you can do it on a break. And there's lots of passion. And Kathy, I hear from you a lot, so yay.
Yeah, they've started meeting an hour earlier. So you have to be there at 5:30, and I missed a couple because I didn't know that. Plus I've been out of town. And so it is so good to go, and you can keep the speaker on and listen to them and get to know who the counselors are who might need an email from you, a follow-up email. Anyway, that's good.
Yes.
Good. Thank you, Joy.
So please, Actually, the first time I shared, I didn't write exactly what I was going to say, and then I found myself tripping on my tongue. So I have taken to actually writing something, and 3 minutes is a long time. The Gettysburg Address is shorter. So it is possible to pick something important, say something, and it makes a difference, I understand. Right, Councilor Hasan, does it make a difference?
It looks like Stephanie had their hand up too.
Oh, I just wanted to encourage people, please look at those slots that are open. We have some amazing articulate voices here, and people that form thoughts so beautifully as you did this evening. So, please consider that short time commitment and contact Joy for that calendar, because she can get used that. It is good stuff. Good stuff.
Yeah, and I can help you. I can listen to you. I have friends that listen to me. So you could practice.
And can I just confirm, I believe, oh, okay, so it's not 5:30. It's 6:30. Wait, which one is it?
It depends. It was 6 and then it was 5:30. They're moving it back because they're not getting through all the business.
Yeah. A week or two ago, it was announced that temporarily it'll be 5:30.
So just to clarify, I think we're trying to get through more. So they proposed a 5:30 start. Other folks did not agree. So we agreed on a 6. However, if I look at next Tuesday's agenda, which I had to pull up, it still says 6:30. We have something called BURA. It's the Beaverton Urban Revitalization A. And that sometimes makes us start at 5:30. So there's just been weird things that happen. Generally, we start at 6:30. There was something that said we will eventually starting at 6, but I just always go to the I don't always know, which is interesting because I just looked up that we're starting at 6:30 next week.
Well, and the agenda isn't even really finalized until Friday because I've been trying to speak to something on the agenda, and it's not posted till Friday. So there's not a lot of lead time, but that's great. Not a lot of prep, 3 minutes. It's good. So please come and share the spotlight with me so they can hear for all of us that I'm not just this old crazy white lady.
And if you're late, you cannot speak.
You can if you're before the last speaker. But when I'm the only speaker,
not much wiggle room.
No. So please, anyone who shared tonight, please say what you said there, where it makes a difference. All right. And then the other thing I think I'm doing is subcommittees or not.
Which I'm wondering if we should table until, since Dori has a subcommittee going, perhaps we can table that and discuss after that group meet.
Yeah, I'm thinking we're good. We're in a direction now. So the next piece is Pride, which is June, dear to my heart. And there's still some ambiguity about whether or not we're going to be locked down or in the park or whatever. So I'm wondering if we as a commission can recommend that the city put up all the decorations regardless of whether or not we're going to have a parade or meet in the park or whatever. Regardless of what we do, let's put up all the decorations. And AAPI, yes.
I recommend that we make that suggestion. That would be, that's my comment on it, is that would be a wonderful, even if we can't have the parade and that many of the, we have to keep things COVID safe, but decorations are COVID safe.
We need to celebrate
space, and we need the celebration.
I wonder if our counselor, how do we, Paolo, how do we bring that to the council? Do we ask our counselor or what do we do?
Are you asking me or Councilor Hasan?
You, I'm asking you, Paolo.
And
do we have Councilor Hasan do what? I don't know.
Is the question, sorry, and I missed the question, is it to have, encourage or have the designs at the event?
How do we ask the Beaverton City Hall to proceed with that?
So it's actually not being organized and hosted by the city of Beaverton like last year as well. There's another organization that's doing it with the city. And I forget what that organization is called. Chairs, I sent it to you before, but I could send it again. But they just said that if HREC wants a table, HREC can get a table. As far as designs, whatnot, I'm not even sure where to start, but bring your questions to me and I will bring it to them. And I think that's probably the best route to go right now.
So there is tentatively something scheduled on the 27th of June.
There are going to be
in the park
celebration on the 27th. Yeah.
And do we want to have a table there as HREC?
Yes.
I do.
Yes, I do.
I do.
Yes.
Okay, how many want to be there?
Start raising the roof.
What day of the
I think
week
we have
is-
enough.
I want to be there.
Kathy had a question.
I'm happy to volunteer to man the table also, or person the table. Excuse my vernacular.
I think Kathy had a question.
Yeah, what, is that a Saturday?
It is.
Okay.
Thanks.
We'll
Yeah, I'll
staff the table.
volunteer.
Okay.
Yes.
So it's sounding like I should confirm with the events team and the organizers that HREC does want a table. And then I will grab details and everything that y'all need to follow up. And then Jory, will you please send me the question that you want me to ask them about the designs? And I'll make sure to ask it.
Designs.
The decorations.
Decorations, please put them all up.
Decorations.
Okay,
Cool. But I will let them know that HREC wants a table and you will have a table.
Fantastic. I'm
One thing I just
I'm
wanna
truly
say-
excited about that because we have historically in HREC had a really great presence, and we're one of the first participants for the city for the Pride Parade, and we've been we've done some
That was fun.
good work. in the
We
community.
historically in HREC have been the city's presence at the Pride Parades.
I was gonna say you were the city's
Well
president.
said.
all right.
That last year, the mayor would be walking by themselves, and they said they came up to me and said, "Paulo, thank you for getting HREC out." I was like, "I didn't do it; they did it." So, but I do want to say though, Joy, did you actually want to collect names here for people to go to the council meetings in 511, 518, and 525?
I would like that. Can you please put volunteer in the chat, and otherwise I'll haunt you. So everyone who said anything tonight, which is I think everyone, please pick a day to come and say something for 3 minutes. If you feel comfortable.
Could we put the oh, we did. We in the chat there's 511, 518, and 525. So if anyone could sign up for that, great. Thank you.
Thank you, Tanya.
Awesome. We have 2 more dates if anyone can do those dates.
Cameron just left. Does that mean we can volunteer him?
I think
Yes.
we volunteered
Kidding.
him.
Yeah. Always. Never leave without everyone going before you.
Okay.
Okay, cool. Sorry. Please continue. Thank you, Tanya. Oh, and thank you, Kathy, also.
Whatever you need, Laurel.
Well, again, if you decide, please let us know. Those we still have two openings, 2 opportunities to speak. Okay, and then we need to have Spencer speak and tell us about some wonderful resources.
Thanks. Unfortunately, what I've been doing is I'm on mailing lists for various organizations that put on seminars, most of which are relevant to the work we're doing and the work that we did last year. And so I've been forwarding those on to our chair, co-chair, and Paolo, in the hope that they could get disseminated out. I'm not supposed to send anything to anybody, right?
It's been
Right.
asked.
We're not
Correct.
supposed to do that because that creates some kind of public record snafu. Right. So, for example, a week or two ago, I sent out links to all of the legislation that's in Salem right now that relates to what the state can do statute-wise to help reform the police. There are statutory restrictions on what citizens, or cities for that matter, can do when it comes to how the police are regulated. So that there are moves taking place there. There have also been a number of articles that I've appreciated reading having to do with what's going on in Portland, and realizing that we're not Portland. Nevertheless, much of what we've talked about is in fact going on in Portland. People are getting shot. There's violence everywhere. City leadership doesn't know what to do. That isn't my point. My point really is the city of Portland last November, the voters passed I guess it's an ordinance or a law, to reinstitute a citizens review board. And so there's a lot of conversation going on in Portland right now about how to make that happen. Of course, the police union is absolutely vehemently opposed to letting anything like that happen. But voters did pass something that is going to require somebody to do something. And I continue to believe that a citizens review panel in Beaverton is something we ought to be working towards. I don't have any specific resources on tap right now, but I guess if I had a question, it would be, do people want to see them? Is that of interest to anybody?
Articles or, yeah.
A variety of things. Articles from the Oregonian or Willamette Week or the Tribunes, the various Tribune newspapers.
I'd love it.
OPB, KGW. I mean, there are all kinds of media down there doing a lot of work, and a lot of it really does relate to what we're doing over here. So, hi, Nadia.
I just want to share one thing. One of the city manager finalists, if you do some social media sleuthing, has actually done some work around some of what you all are talking about. So just Google city manager candidates.
Well, then we'll vote for them.
Yes. And yes, please do that, Spencer. I will read them and tuck them away.
Okay. So, Paolo, what do we do?
Yeah, you can continue to send things my way, and I think that I sometimes have been slipping on that because I get you all share a lot of wonderful resources, and so when I get them, I usually try to turn them around, but I'm also seeing too that like I sometimes try to couple them together because then I don't know if you already are getting email fatigue from me. But that's also why I intentionally wanted to try, or at least encourage creating a space here to say more about said resources that you all share with me, just because I've been, being cognizant of the fact that a lot of them are coming in and I might miss some every now and then. I could easily just forward literally every single one that comes my way, but I also don't know if that's going to be too much for you all. Yes, okay. It looks like Joy.
Yes.
Oh,
could we legally just send articles to the whole group?
I think I've done that with my podcast stuff.
They need to go through Paolo for a city record, correct?
I'm sorry, what was that?
It needs to go through you for the city record. I think what Paolo's concern is that if we're bombarded with emails, then we tend to start ignoring
That's exactly right.
what we see. And so perhaps an answer to this would be to condense the information into one email. If we could collect the resources and then condense it into one email. And I see Dori's hand is up, and I think I preempted you.
Oh no, I was just thinking the same thing, that it might be easier to, Paolo, I'm trying to figure out, are we causing you too much work? One is we could put them in the chat at the end of meetings like right now, right? That's a quick way. You save the chat, then you have the resources if you have a link to it, right? The other way, which I think is like, that eliminates Paolo's workload from being engaged in all this altogether, by just having them be links that we can add to the chat. The other way, which would be more Paolo's time though, is to send them all to Paolo and then have him condense and consolidate, just cut and paste onto a doc and send it with the minutes.
Paolo, do you have an opinion on which would work best for you? Because I too feel a sensitivity about your time. If it can all come in one document with the minutes, that's fantastic. If not, then we should save our resources and put them in the chat at our meetings.
So yeah, and I was actually just typing in there, but I'll say, like, it actually it's actually really quick. You know, I think somebody sends something my way and I just forward it to you all. That's fine. I'm happy to do that. But again, it's just, there'll be a lot. And so I've been trying to be sensitive with that, because email fatigue. And then I also understand too that if you see my name in your inbox so many times, that maybe you'll start ignoring those messages. That's really the only reason. I have no problem at all pressing the forward button and then a track, and that takes 2 seconds.
Well, it sounds to me like the consensus is consolidation would be the best. And then we know what that is. We're going to that email and we're looking through the resources and being able to click on those links. And some of the articles that Spencer has sent out are extremely valuable. And I appreciate the idea of them being consolidated, because I'm always in the game of email management, and I know a lot of us are.
I will say though that sometimes you all send me things that are time sensitive, and it might be that there's this event happening, and so I'll admit that, okay, I could just be more cognizant of that, and then the things that aren't so time sensitive I can consolidate and send at the end when I send out minutes. I can do that, but then I'll just be cognizant if something is time sensitive and make sure to just forward it along.
Great. Kathy?
Yeah, I'd just like to say that it's not consensus, that I do appreciate getting the Oregon news, which it's harder for me to get that actually than the national news. And so, yes, I can be bombarded and delete as I wish.
Why don't we try this? Why don't you guys just send me what you've got, and I'll put together a compendium every week and send it to Paolo, and Paolo can send it to the crew, and so that way there won't be stuff coming out every day, but it'll be in small enough bites that if I send it on a Friday and people have time over the weekend, they can take a look. You're right though about time sensitive things, particularly when it comes to seminars and that sort of thing, most of which because of Zoom are free anyway. There's been a huge amount of attention paid during the last 6, 8, 10 months to the horrific racist past of the state of Oregon and the city of Portland, and how constitutionally people of color weren't allowed to come here. I mean, it's unbelievable now, but it happened. So people have been paying a lot of attention to that. Everybody's been, Oregon Historical Society, the Holocaust Museum, Anti-Defamation League. A lot of people have been collaborating on these programs, and they're continuing to do so.
Spencer, that would be an incredible value add to our commission.
Okay, I'll do that.
Thank you. Since we are past our time for our commission meeting space, I'm going to make a movement to adjourn. I'm so proud of what we got accomplished today. Laurel, before
I'll keep it super, super brief. I just wanted, well, before we adjourn, I wanted to, because the May 18th election is coming up very rapidly, you are all very engaged community members, and I hope that you have a lot of friends and acquaintances and contacts in the city of Beaverton. These types of local elections often have a very low turnout. And I wanted to once again really encourage everyone, not only for you to vote, but please talk to the people who you have contact with. And if you're looking for ways to learn more about candidates, I recommend looking at who candidates are endorsed by. And I'm going to put a link in the chat that's related to the school board candidates specifically. So that's one possible source of more information. But please be talking to the people in your community just about the election, and like, if you can connect with people, hey, can I help you take your ballot? It's a really good way that we can kind of carry that work outside of just this meeting space.
That's a really good point, Laurel. Thank you. There are at least 2 candidates for the Beaverton School Board that are 2 of the most frightening people I've ever seen in the state of Oregon. They're supported by white supremacists and the Proud Boys, or whoever those people are, and gun rights people. And anyway, they're scary people.
Thank you, Laura, for those resources. We absolutely need them to make informed decisions. I feel very, very strongly about that. Yes, and we will certainly all be getting our ballots and encouraging our friends and neighbors to do as well. Thank you all for the meeting today. Again, I'm so grateful. I'm truly humbled to work with such an incredible team of people. Thank you for today. Good night, you all.
Thanks, everybody.
Good night.
Good night.
Thank you.
Night.